students have worked through magical translations and the copycat lesson, and they've started to work in that. The next step would be to teach them the games. So let's look at the scope and sequence on how I would teach that. So here we are right here. Our lesson would be a whole class. If there are enough devices, I would have the kids partnered, one device for 2 kids, but try to do this as a whole class lesson. If that doesn't work, then I would have the large groups of 6 to 8 kids. And I would have still these heterogeneous groups so that we've got lots of peer assistance going on. But also have a device for the teacher. And if you're doing the large groups, of course, the students not in this lesson would need to have some independent work. And we don't necessarily need any materials, although I might, I would have judged beforehand if it would be helpful for this particular class to have physical materials that look like and represent the games. I'll talk about that in just a moment. So let's look and see what the games look like. So here you see a layout of what the kids would see on the screen. This is in the story called Cecilia. And here is that path of magical translations, copycat, et cetera, et cetera. And here's where they would toggle over to the games. The very first game that becomes available, and it becomes available just as soon as they finish the magical translations, is the matching. So for example, finish magical translations, matching becomes available. And then you've got the copycat, and then articles become available, and so on and so forth. You can see the color coding there. Even though this is available just as soon as magical translations is completed, I find it best that we do the games, and I'm talking about the very beginning introduction of FabuLingua, not, for every single story, to wait until a child is already comfortable with the vocabulary before introducing a game. So that's why I'm bringing it up now, a few lessons and dedicated times into the situation. Many kids will actually need to repeat magical translations and or copycat a few times before they find the games entertaining and beneficial. Eventually, this becomes self-monitoring and not micromanaged by the teacher, simply because the students won't find them very fun, and they're until they're actually recognizing the vocabulary. And the key to picking up the language is listening to it and interacting with it. And that's why, that happens in magical translations. And in this nature, I'll say the answers to the games, for example, the matching, the comprehension, and then later the articles here. They're natural pieces to the language that are in the stories. So if a child feels not ready for the game, they can just, exit out of that, and they toggle right back over to the magical translations. And I would show this in demonstrating the game. Like, we get started and we're like, oh, now I wouldn't walk through the entire magical translations, but I would role play that a little bit. Also know that, in talking about and normalizing what it feels like to go back, not making it look like a regression, but rather just keeping the language alive where, the level that you're at. So keep in mind that within the story, a noun always includes its article. And clicking on the noun in a picture will include its article. So for that article level of the games, when they go back to the magical translations, and they can click on it and they're going to hear it. The idea is not to do the game, not know the answer, go do magical translations, click on that one, and then go back to the game. It would be extremely tedious. But just pointing that out, I think might bring that awareness to a surface level for the kids. So anyway, we would look like what it looks like. We would go through what it looks like when you're not ready and how to return to the stories. And then after going over the first 2 games, the matching and the articles, I would then cover the stickers and set the parameters around how you decide to use the stickers. If time and attention allows, then the last 2 games could be covered. Otherwise, I would save those for a separate lesson. And teaching the games could be skipped if time is an issue. However, the article matching probably needs to be addressed since that is different from the English grammar structure. Most of the kids will pick that up on their own, but if you're already doing some grammar work, then this might be a great time to, bring them, like I said, to the surface level. And then if you see that the group that you're working with maybe needs a little bit extra visual and manipulatives to work with, then one thing that I personally would do is you've got the printouts from the teacher's resources from FabuLingua, and you could actually do a game, but in a physical way. So you've got, you just be copycatting what happens in the game, but doing it there, on the floor, on the bulletin board in your classroom, and they can pick something up and walk it over to the right place. And that's one extra kind of follow-up and reinforcement that can be used if it's needed. And you just check the teacher's resources folder for those. After the games comes the Spanish only version, and that's another jump in level. So I encourage the kids, while the games seem like something really fun and reward, it is quite a challenge for a lot of them. So I encourage lots of game work when they're doing their dedicated FabuLingua time.